Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Noel.
My name is Bhumik.
And we are two of the Thinkful HQ members. My name is, as mentioned, my name is Noel. I'm the education advisor here at Thinkful.
I'm the program manager for our full-time bootcamp.
And we wanted to welcome everyone today to the Thinkful Web Development Bootcamp info session that we have. We have about a minute or so before we can get started with the presentation. We'll also give some time so that anyone who's joining us at the very last minute can jump in and get settled. But today we prepared some slides for everyone, so in about a minute or so I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. But for now, we can just hang out for a couple of seconds. If you'd like to introduce yourself on the chat, don't worry, no one else can see your name or your information, only we'll be able to. But other than that, yeah, we'll get started briefly. Great, so I will go ahead and share my screen. And we'll put the slides up. So for those of you that are just joining us now, I wanted to reintroduce myself. My name is Noel and I'm the education advisor here at Thinkful.
And I'm Bhumik. I'm the program manager for our full-time bootcamp.
And today we'll be spending some time with everyone giving you an overview of what the Web Development Bootcamp program is here at Thinkful. We're going to be talking about the Thinkful student experience overall, meaning we'll cover what the curriculum is like, what the career prep and job placement component of the program is all about. And then with that, taking a closer look at the graduate outcomes that we have for the course itself. Towards the end, we'll also talk about the job placement guarantee and the different scholarships and financing options that we have for the program. As we're going through the presentation, if you do have any questions, whether it's something that you saw on a slide during the presentation or something that you may have seen on the website or that one of us referenced via email, please feel free to type that into the chat box. We'll make sure that there's plenty of time at the end there to run through those. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you that know already, for those of you that don't know but are about to find out, the Web Development Bootcamp program that we've structured here at Thinkful is a program that is entirely structured around guiding you from a beginner position with programming to an employed developer. It's focused around one-on-one mentorship, and it covers a full stack curriculum that also covers the computer science concepts and developer tools that you'll need to succeed at your future job as a developer. Because the program itself, the whole point of the program is to guide you into a new position, there has to be a very comprehensive career prep and job place component to it as well. And overall, it has a track record of success. We've seen 93% of our graduates find jobs as developers or engineers within the first 4 months of completing the program. And we're working with students with really, really different backgrounds. Most of the students that come through a Thinkful program don't have a lot of experience with programming. They've spent some time in Codecademy or Treehouse, or maybe took a college class a while ago that covered things like HTML and CSS, while other students that are coming into the program do have experience. It's just with different technologies, and they're looking for a way to up their skills so that they can move into a more efficient position or a position that they'd like to jump into. Regardless of what your personal experience is with programming so far, we strongly believe that the path to your new career as a developer begins with the one-on-one mentorship that you'll receive as a Thinkful student. And for that reason, everything that we do at Thinkful is focused around that one-on-one mentorship component. Research has proven many times that one-on-one is the most effective way to learn. And at Thinkful, that means a personal mentorship experience that's tailored exactly around who you are as a student and what your experience is so far. That means that you're going to be working with a professional mentor and engineer who is entirely devoted to seeing you succeed. They're going to be picking up on your learning style, meaning they'll identify components of the curriculum that you may have some trouble with, or also components of the curriculum that based on any experience that you have, you can move through more quickly. It really means that you're going to have every single question that you have regarding the program, regarding the curriculum or the projects that you're working on, answered by a professional who is devoted to your learning and nothing else. You're going to be learning from an industry expert that has a lot of experience to pass on to you. And for that reason, it's extremely important that we're pairing you with a professional who's not only a great match, but is also great at doing what they do, both the engineering component and the teaching component. And as I mentioned, this incredible connection that you have to your mentor can only be there if we're picking someone for you who has a lot of experience in the technical component of things and the non-technical. Overall, the mentors that work for Thinkful have an average of about 10 years of experience working as professionals in the industry, and they're coming from really different backgrounds. The two mentors that you see on screen are a perfect example of the type of people that are working for Thinkful as mentors, because they're great engineers and they're also incredible teachers. The hiring process that we have here at Thinkful is incredibly rigorous, and Shristi and JP both have gone through a process that's selected for developers and engineers that are great at their craft, but also have the right personality type to be able to work with different types of students and help them succeed in learning something that can be as complicated as learning to program. Shristi on the left side of your screen, for example, has worked as a software architect at companies like Accenture and Adobe for many, many years, and she is a complete JavaScript expert. She's worked with virtually every library and framework that JavaScript has ever had written for it. And she is someone who is coming from a very, very experienced background, having more recently started her own company Insight to encourage more women to join the tech industry as developers and engineers. JP on the right is someone who's coming from a very different background than Shristi. He's actually coming from the graphic design space and is someone who became an engineer many years ago and has since worked for companies like Nike and HP, where he's built award-winning sites for those two individual companies. He's someone who's very excited by the very advanced graphics that you can produce with JavaScript and its different frameworks. So if you had a question about aesthetic graphics that you can produce with jQuery or with vanilla JavaScript, JP is someone who would be able to answer that to a T. He's an incredible mentor, and both Shristi and JP have been selected by the mentor manager that works for Thinkful because they're individuals who will help you succeed in the program. To give you a rough overview of really how rigorous the hiring process that these mentors have gone through is, over the past year, we've worked with about 1,000 candidates who wish to become Thinkful mentors, but we've selected fewer than 20% of those.
And a couple of things here too. When I think about what makes a great mentor, especially when thinking about who's going to be a mentor for the full-time bootcamp and the flexible bootcamp, because I do, on top of the kind of mentor matching process where they first get onboarded to being a Thinkful mentor, the program managers for the bootcamps, they make sure to actually talk to each of the mentors, get to know them, explain the program, and make sure they're a good fit. So I had a chance to talk to both of them about their experiences. And the thing that we look for in the bootcamp specifically is kind of three things from a mentor: that they have technical understanding of the skills that the students need. They are able to teach those concepts, so they are able to explain it well and have that kind of educational insight. But third, and most importantly, they have empathy, and they can understand when students feel demotivated or they need an extra push or some extra drive. So those three things is what makes a successful mentor. And as Noel said, each of them also kind of brings something unique to the table. Like Shristi's spending some time figuring out how to encourage more women to get into tech. JP actually spends a lot of time focusing on that accessibility in tech and how to build websites that are good for any kind of audience, whether they need a screen reader or they have some kind of visual impairment. So each of the mentors contribute something unique to the Thinkful community. So we're really proud of them as well.
And as Bomik mentioned, those three components that he pointed out that we look for in mentors, you're going to be interacting with each of those through the one-on-one sessions that you have with your personal mentor every week. You and your mentor are going to be forming a very strong bond and a very strong relationship throughout the entire program. So really towards the end, they're going to be your best friends in development. They're going to be there to do more than just the technical component of things. They're going to talk to you about what it takes to integrate the course into your life appropriately and making sure that you're devoting the time to the course that it deserves and that it requires. There isn't a typical one-on-one session that you'll have with your personal mentor, because really you as a new developer and the program itself are going to evolve. Some weeks you'll spend a lot of time reviewing the progress that you've made and really asking the mentor questions about the curriculum that you may not understand. The mentor will teach you and show you concepts and the best approaches to a specific project. Other weeks you're going to be working more closely with your mentor, building actual projects, pair programming and discussing the best practices for a specific implementation, and also getting a lot of constructive feedback on the individual assignments that you complete and the individual portfolio that you're crafting. As some of you may already know, one of the core challenges of being an adult student is that you do have several responsibilities outside of the course. For some of you, that may be the fact that you're a full-time student or have a full-time job, or you have family and friends that keep you busy. For most of us, it's kind of a combination of several different factors. And so the mentor is there to understand who you are as a student specifically and make sure that you're making, yes, the technical progress, building projects and understanding the skills, but that you're also reaching out for help and devoting the time that the course requires, as I mentioned. The mentor will encourage you to hit them up on Slack or send them an email throughout the week to check in on progress. They'll encourage you to attend extra office hours if you need the help, or get in touch with your program manager to figure out if there's something else that the mentor can do outside of their regular day-to-day to make sure that the overall experience is something that truly benefits you as a student.
Yeah, and one thing worth mentioning, they're not only your mentor as when you're a student at Thinkful. After you graduate and you land your job, many students go back and talk to their mentors and update them on new projects they worked on. I was actually a student at Thinkful 3 years ago, and my mentor, James Duncan, I still talk to him. He actually lives in the city, and then we met up before he comes by the office. So the relationship you form with your mentor isn't just for the program. They'll be the ones who can write recommendations for you on LinkedIn and kind of be in touch when you look for your second job or your third job. So this is a relationship that's built to last, not just for the program too.
And as I'm sure some of you may have already experienced in your own educational endeavors in the past, forming a strong connection with a mentor or a professor is incredibly helpful, because you're able to go with them with any question that you have related to the coursework that you're doing without feeling embarrassed that you're not understanding a concept too well. And because the mentor is there to help you understand the technical components of the Thinkful curriculum, it's incredibly important that you have such a strong connection with them. So when you're moving through the curriculum and there's something related to JavaScript that you don't understand, it's important that your mentor can help you explain not only why JavaScript is such a powerful language, but why the Thinkful curriculum itself focuses on it. And at Thinkful, I wanted to note that the full stack curriculum that we have with JavaScript and its different frameworks is there for a number of reasons. First, that it's really the most widely used language in web development, and it's incredibly versatile. You can build entire websites and applications using just JavaScript and its different frameworks, and it's constantly evolving. Great example of this would be about a month and a half ago, we integrated working with React into the curriculum as opposed to with AngularJS as part of the default program. One of the reasons that we did so is because we receive a lot of feedback from the mentors that work for Thinkful, so the industry experts that work for Thinkful. And they let us know if there's an industry trend that's happening. They let us know if there should be a part of the curriculum that should be updated so that you, the student, are working through a curriculum that's alive, that's breathing, that's constantly changing to benefit you and prepare you for the types of jobs that you're going to see as developers once you start submitting applications.
Yeah, and the problem this helps solve, especially if you're kind of a prospective student trying to get into programming and not sure what to actually learn, we're doing that for you. We are spending the time to figure out what will get our students hired as web developers and going backwards from that. So we spent time looking at a lot of job postings for web developers and looking at the skills they need. With that said, that does differ from location to location, which we'll talk about later. And if that happens, then we will work with you to figure out what other skill you need to develop to position yourself well. So as the program manager of the full-time program, there's a week set apart where students can learn a skill on their own, and we work with you to help you learn that extra skill. And similarly, in the flexible bootcamp, you'll have an opportunity once you're done with the core part of the curriculum itself to learn something else, something that will help you specifically with your own job hunt.
Yeah, and that being said, I'm sure that it's very important for everyone to understand what you're actually going to be learning as part of the Thinkful program. And so I wanted to give you an overview of what the course will look like in terms of what you're covering. When you first start out, you're going to be working with things like HTML and CSS, which I'm sure some of you have already covered through your own self-learning or self-teaching. Then you're going to begin working with the developer tools, working with Git and GitHub, and becoming really efficient at working from the command line, which are tools that you'll definitely need as part of any team of developers that you join, or to join a team of developers. Then after that, you're going to move on to working with JavaScript and jQuery, learning the programming fundamentals before you learn more intermediate front-end development, learning about responsive design, and then jumping into the server side of development, working with Node.js, with Express and MongoDB, and then you wrap up the program by working with React to round out your skills and finish up with a really strong front-end library. Once you've covered those concepts, you're going to focus on something that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, which is also the computer science tools and concepts that you'll need to understand to successfully perform at technical interviews once you begin applying for jobs, and eventually help you in your future careers in terms of going into a more senior level position. At Thinkful, these concepts were all written, or these projects were all written by one of the professors that works for Thinkful. His name is Dr. Mike Littman. He's been a professor of computer science for many, many years. He has written a number of these projects that are part of the curriculum itself, but has also written additional projects that individual students can focus on if they are particularly interested in diving deeper into data structures and algorithms. They can be part of your curriculum by having us pair you with Dr. Littman or another mentor from within our network. And they're incredibly important concepts to focus on if you're someone who is in a very competitive market like San Francisco or New York City. Why? Because the market around those areas demand that. And we want to make sure that every Thinkful student has access to the training that they need to successfully move into a job, regardless of where they are in the country, or as Bomik mentioned earlier, regardless of what technology or language will help them achieve a new job.
Yeah, and one thing also worth highlighting, and it relates to the constantly evolving part of JavaScript, but our curriculum is also constantly evolving. So if we learn that there's a more stable version of React coming up, like React 2, or there is another skill that is becoming much more popular, like some developer tool like Grunt or Gulp, we will add that to the curriculum. We have a team, someone leading it, our Ben White, our head of curriculum, but he works directly with our entire mentor team, as well as engineers at Thinkful and outside, like in the job market, and figuring out what needs to be updated and improved. So we listen to all the student feedback and mentor feedback and update the curriculum. And as an example of that, our front-end curriculum is actually on version 5, and that latest version was released 2 weeks ago. So we're constantly kind of updating this all the time.
Definitely. And those skills and the reason we do that is because the skills that you're learning are very important in both the immediate term and the long term. Making sure that you're spending the time that you're going in through a boot camp and you're condensing into a period of 4 to 6 months, really learning a language that's going to empower you as a developer in the future. Meaning that you'll walk away from a course at Thinkful or from the boot camp at Thinkful with a very strong understanding of working with JavaScript and its different frameworks, and can therefore more easily pick up additional libraries or frameworks later on in your careers. Or additionally, even languages like Ruby on Rails or Python if you choose to learn something, or if your job is asking you to do so. These skills, however, on the more immediate term are also helping you build the portfolio that you're going to be presenting to employers when you begin looking for jobs. And because the portfolio has become one of the most important components of any application for a developer position, it's important that the portfolio is entirely unique, that it's comprehensive, and that it helps you stand out from other candidates that may be applying for the same job. For that reason, it's important to note that if you're considering a program that has you recreate sites like Airbnb or Reddit or things like Instagram or Etsy, sure, those individual projects are showcasing that you know how to follow a list of criteria and a list of rules in recreating a site or recreating a project, and that you may understand some of the technologies behind that, but they're not showcasing the fact that you understand how a project should come around from the very initial stages, thinking about what that solution or the service that app is going to provide is, wireframing it, and putting it through a first version that you then present to your colleagues. At Thinkful, your colleagues will be your program manager, your personal mentor, other mentors from within our network, and even other students in Thinkful HQ, who will all give you feedback, constructive feedback that you take, and you'll use to refactor that MVP that you built into a second, more finalized version. When you're able to take a project that you thought of, that you created, to an interview, and you present it to the hiring manager and the senior engineer in the room with you, you're going to stand out and you're going to leave a really long-lasting impression. One of the projects that one of our most recent graduates built, Paul Anderson, is what you see on screen now. And I actually want to step away from the presentation slides to give you an overview of what this project looks like in real time. So if you wouldn't mind indulging me for 1 second, I will continue sharing my screen, and we'll click on this application, and I'll show you what Paul was able to showcase to the hiring manager that eventually hired him onto the team. Paul is one of our most recent graduates working outside of Dallas, Texas. So the application that he built has a homepage that's centered around Dallas. We'll instead drag that over to New York City, specifically Lower Manhattan in the Soho area, which is where Thinkful HQ is located. And once we are located and centered around Soho, we can go ahead and refresh the application, and these pink dots will pop up on the screen that let us know that there's an event happening in one of these venues or areas. These can range and be things like music festivals or concerts. I've seen basketball matches at a local high school, or boxing matches at an arena somewhere. We can click on any one of these events, and it'll let us know that there is an event happening. We can click through, and it'll take us to the website of the venue. It'll take us to something like Eventbrite. It'll also take us to something like Ticketmaster or Live Nation, really different sites that host different events. And again, this is all to give you an overview of the types of events that you could expect, or the types of projects that you could expect to build as part of the Thinkful program. Something that's entirely unique and that really showcases not only who you are as a developer, but who you are as an individual student. When Paul took this to the hiring manager that he worked with, it was able to showcase his skills and get him hired. But of course, there's also much more to getting hired as a developer than just building a portfolio and building the technical skills that you need. And what's really important is that you have the right level of support and the right type of support as you begin navigating the tech industry and searching for a job as a developer. For that reason, it's also incredibly important that the program that you're looking into has a very comprehensive and a very strong career prep and job placement support system. At Thinkful, the career prep and job placement begins from the very first week that you're enrolled in the program. Once you're enrolled, we'll be pairing you with an additional professional who's there to see you succeed, and that would be your career coach. Initially, you and your career coach are going to be discussing things like your natural interest in the tech industry, thinking about the types of companies that you'd see yourself working for, where in the country you'd like to work, and whether you already know someone who's the developer, or you've perhaps spoken to a couple of hiring managers already. You're going to be growing the network of employers that you work with. And while you're in the program, the career coach is going to encourage you to attend tech meetups or hackathons, making sure that you talk to people in the industry and get a better sense for what the industry is like in your specific market. Once you build the technical skills in the program, you're going to be putting those to practice by working with different mentors from within our network during mock interview sessions that are going to be exactly like the technical interviews that you'll face once you start submitting applications. These interviews are all scheduled with different mentors from within our network, and the goal behind that is that you never get too familiar or friendly with one specific mentor, so that it's always really parallel to an experience that you'll have after you begin applying for jobs.
We want you to get nervous.
Yeah, we definitely want you to get nervous. We want you to think about the non-technical component of interviewing, the soft skills that you're putting to practice. So making sure that you're not repeating yourself, that you're not going off topic, and that you stay concentrated on the task at hand, answering the challenge that they hand off to you or figuring out the problem that they present. There will be at least 4 of these technical interviews that you're going to cover as part of the curriculum or the program. And I say at least 4 because there are, of course, going to be concepts that you may struggle with. And if you're someone who's struggling through something like working with Node.js, for example, and it would really benefit if you put that to practice again, we'll schedule another one of those technical interviews. These mentors that you're going to be working with were specifically selected from within our pool of professionals because they've either been senior engineers at companies for many, many years and in their tenure have proctored many of these interviews already, or we've trained them to know exactly what to look for, both in terms of the technical and the non-technical component of your interview, as I mentioned. Once you do get closer to the graduation point of the program and you're actively finishing up the portfolio pieces that you create, the 4 capstone projects that you're working on, you and your career coach are going to get in touch on a more constant basis. You're going to figure out what the portfolio that you have looks like. You're going to take a closer look at your LinkedIn profile, your GitHub account, your resume, and all these application materials that you'll need to have perfected and polished before you actually start submitting applications. At Thinkful, this happens through several ways, or in many ways. You are going to also be practicing the phone calls that lead to an initial conversation between you and the hiring manager that you're working with. You're going to take a closer look at the emails that you're drafting and that you're sending out to introduce yourself to employers. All in all, the mentor or the career coach is going to be guiding you in submitting applications. And while you're doing that, the career coach is going to be doing that on your behalf as well. They're going to be reaching out to employers that we've worked with in the past and making an introduction or setting up an interview on your behalf where you take it from there.
Yeah, and one thing to emphasize here, especially on the first 2 bullet points, is these aren't generic pieces of advice or like group workshops on how to make how to write a good resume. This is personalized, thorough, specific feedback. So for example, in the resume, and this is actually important for me because our first cohort of the full-time bootcamp graduates tomorrow, and they just went through a lot of this. So each of the students actually emailed in an example resume to Gray and Liz in a Google Doc, and they responded with specific comments and feedback on how to actually structure it. Then they went about and actually made those changes, sent that as a separate PDF, just so the student understands kind of why we made the changes and what the kind of polished resume looks like. Similarly, on the portfolio, it was like a step-by-step process. So first, we had kind of a group workshop where we explained what we look for in a portfolio. So, your about me, your contact information, and then 3 to 4 impressive portfolio pieces. And then that went through a design review first. Then that went through a content review. And then I also went through a copy review with the students to make sure that the students are describing the skills in a professional manner. So this is like thorough, intensive feedback for each individual student. This is not group advice. It's not like one person giving a lecture to all 20 students. It's you personally getting feedback on your own resume and portfolio and interviews and things like that.
Yeah, and to go off of what Gomit just mentioned about how incredibly personalized this entire career prep and job placement component of the course is, I also wanted to highlight the incredible work that the person that you see on screen now is doing for Thinkful and for our students and graduates. Liz Parsekian is the employer network manager here at Thinkful, and she's actively growing the network of employers that we work with. She is constantly reaching out to companies that have hired our graduates, companies that mentors that work for Thinkful have connections to, and also companies that would be a good fit for one of our graduates based on the skills that they have and the location or the part of the country that they like to work in. This is all done on a case-by-case basis, meaning that Liz is reaching out to companies and employers that students would like to work for. Just to give you an example of how this is done and the type of work that Liz is doing, about, I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was in a room with her while she was on the phone with the hiring manager at Amazon over in Seattle. We were originally looking for a position for one of our developers in Denver, Colorado, but the hiring manager let us know that there were no open positions at their Denver office, but that there were many positions open in Seattle. And she said, hey, we'd be very interested in interviewing any of your grads that are in Seattle, in the Seattle area. So send them our way. That's a connection that we now have and that we're going to be using as graduates of the program in Seattle start looking for jobs. Another example that I can think of is about a month ago, or a month and a half ago, one of our recent grads here in New York City was hired by a company that initially started out kind of small. The company's been doing very well and they're growing really quickly. And a little while after they hired Rachel, the Thinkful graduate, they reached out to Thinkful and said, hey, we may be hiring more developers in the coming months. If we do, we'd love to have anyone who's graduated from the program, send them over to us and we'll interview. That's another example of really the type of work that Liz is doing and the type of connections that we're forging at Thinkful in terms of your support and your career opportunities. I also wanted to note that this is something that's entirely unique to Thinkful. No other online bootcamp that I can think of, or really any in-person bootcamp that I can think of, is pairing you with an individual career coach who is setting up introductions and interviews to individual companies based on who you are as a student. We'll never throw you into a career fair and make you compete with not only your fellow graduates, but many other applicants. We'll never hire a recruiter who is going to take any percentage of your salary, or worse, introduce you to an employer or point you in the direction of an interview or a position that they've already pointed 15 other students in the direction of. So instead, we take an approach that's very different, very similar to the one-on-one mentorship component that we have as part of the technical part of the process. We're doing that same thing with the career prep and the job placement component of the course as well. And this is something that happens from the very beginning of the course. As I mentioned, from week 1, you'll be in touch with your career coach, first expanding the network of professionals that you work with. Then you're going to put the skills that you have to practice, and you'll wrap up the program prepared to join the industry as a successful applicant for jobs, and eventually calling Liz or your career coach or someone else at Thinkful HQ and letting them know that you've been offered a position that you really wanted and that you're very excited to sign the offer letter in the next week.
Right, and one other thing to emphasize when you're going to the things we don't do is we stress quality over quantity and the actual number of job applicants and your entire job search. So we will not tell you, oh, you need to apply to 5 job postings every single day, which is actually a specific requirement for many offline and online boot camps. Instead, we want you to focus on the companies that will help you grow the most. So we're focused on personal growth and happiness at your job. We don't want to just get our job guarantees satisfied, like with a check mark of you working anywhere. We want you to work at a place where you're happy, or a place where you'll grow enough so you can have an even better second job. So it's a big stress on quality, not quantity of applicants too.
Yeah, and this is something that we'll definitely touch more on a little later in the presentation when it comes to the job placement guarantee, but it is very important to know that we'll never ask you to apply to a company or for a job that you don't want to. However, it is very important that you're open to the considerations that your career coach has for you, but there'll be more on that later. For now, I wanted to turn the presentation around to a report that we published at Thinkful in early 2016 that I think does a really great job at highlighting 2 things that Thinkful cares very deeply about. The first is celebrating the success of the graduates that have gone through the program and the incredible work that the mentors that work for Thinkful do for each of those individual students. The second thing that I think this report does really great is presenting what Thinkful really cares about as an institution overall, which is transparency around education and being completely honest about the outcomes that our graduates can expect from the program. So as I mentioned, in January of this year, Thinkful became the first online programming school to publish a report with statistics on the outcomes of every graduate and student that has gone through the Web Development Bootcamp. Later in the year, I think in April of this year, we became the first programming school to have that report audited by a third party to verify that all the data that you see on there, all the numbers that you see on there are legitimate, accurate, and that the methods that we've applied are exactly as we've advertised them.
And I was actually part of the audit data process, and I had to go and talk to every single student and make sure to get accurate data. And then the company that you see in the bottom right corner, they actually called a lot of our students to actually verify each of those data points. So it was like an intensive process, and we'll be going through that next year as well. And I think we're also the only school, both offline and online, who will update this every single month. So on the 15th of each month, I believe.
Yeah, 15th of each month.
We update the report you see that Noel will post in the chat later, but that is updated every single month, and we'll go through an audit, every 6 months, year, when it's convenient.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned, I want to really highlight that this report is first celebrating the success of our graduates, the job placement rate, which I mentioned earlier, at 93% job placement, the types of titles that our graduates have, ranging from software engineer to web developer to junior developer, depending, of course, on the type of company they're working for and what their job description is. Also has information about how long it took them to find a job, and some information about who the students are individually, how old they were in the program, whether they were working full-time or part-time while they were in the course or not working at all, what part of the country they're from or what part of the world they're from. So if you're somewhere outside of the States, quite likely that there's already been a Thinkful student, maybe not in the bootcamp, but overall in the program that has gone through one of our courses. And then the other component that I want to really highlight and focus on is also what I mentioned about Thinkful as an institution being honest and being transparent about our outcomes and our processes. Until now, until really recently actually, a lot of students that have looked into bootcamps and online education programs have really placed their entire trust and taken a leap of faith in ensuring or trusting that the company or that the bootcamp or the programming school that they're looking into is honest about the numbers that they're publishing. And that's not necessarily a sustainable approach. And Thinkful's approach in making the industry be more progressive and more transparent is publishing a report so that students have the tools that they need to make an informed decision about the bootcamp that they're looking into. So if you see a job placement rate percentage, or if you see a salary increase or a salary number, that you ask the bootcamp that you're looking into, what do those numbers really mean? What types of jobs are their students getting? Is the national salary that you have out there, the national starting salary, the average for the national starting salary up there, what your graduates are earning? Or is that something that you found on Indeed.com or through Glassdoor.com? It's important that you also ask Thinkful those numbers. And so if after looking at the report, you want to ask me any questions that you have about the job placement rate or the salary increase amongst our graduates, or where the graduates are in the country, what their job titles are and what those mean, please feel free to type those into the chat box or reach out to me one-on-one. You can also see the report that we received from the accounting firm that we worked with as part of that report itself. So I'll be sure to share that in the chat box as Bhumik mentioned earlier. In addition to publishing statistics and data, it's also really important that we celebrate the success stories of individual students. And I wanted to spend some time talking about 4 of those graduates now, because I think that the individual graduates that you see on their screen now do a great job in representing who Thinkful students really are. No graduate that you see on your screen now went through the Thinkful program having already had a CS degree or any level of professional experience in programming. Matt, Rachel, Christian, and Emily all came to Thinkful as true beginners who had maybe looked at things like Codecademy or Treehouse for a couple of weeks, but never had any level of professional experience with programming and certainly did not have a computer science degree. Matt, for example, is another graduate of ours who's working in Dallas, Texas. And before coming to Thinkful, he was an English teacher who focused on English as a second language education. As I mentioned, he had looked through a couple of weeks worth of Codecademy and Treehouse, realized that he needed something a little bit more immersive, to accomplish his goal of becoming a developer and came through the bootcamp program. I think about 2 or 3 months ago, was placed into a job as a developer over in Dallas, Texas. Emily is another great example of someone who studied something completely unrelated to programming in college. She went to undergrad for political science and then was an intern in several different industries before coming to the bootcamp program. And after graduating from the bootcamp program not too long ago, she was placed as a software engineer over at IBM here in New York. Her office at IBM is actually about 20, 25 minutes north of where Thinkful is in Manhattan. And Rachel is the developer that I talked about earlier that was hired by a company here in New York. She's overworking at Hedgeable. Christian is someone who was in retail sales in Los Angeles, went through the boot camp, I think starting 2015, and very early in 2016 was placed into his first job as a developer over at CostForce.
Did you talk to any of them before they enrolled?
No, not yet actually. Matt enrolled and Rachel enrolled, I believe, in the program right when I was
right
starting,
when you're joining here.
Right when I was starting working here at Thinkful. But I did want to note that when one of our graduates finds a job as a developer, it's a very big deal for Thinkful because we're very invested in the individual success stories of each of our students. Overall, yeah, we're very happy to boast about our 93% job placement rate and to boast about the salary increase that our graduates can expect. But on a much more personal level, it's important for the mentor that student worked with, for the program manager that worked with that individual student. And also it's starting to become really important for me because I'm starting to see students that I spoke to about 6 months ago complete the program and get hired as developers, following the timeline that we have here at Thinkful. I'm starting to see students that I spoke to in January when I first started at Thinkful, or in February or March, graduate from the program, start searching for jobs and start landing jobs. And it's incredibly exciting when I hear from Liz or from one of our co-founders or one of our program managers that someone that I spoke to in March or in January who was initially very nervous about making such an important commitment and decision is now working as a developer. It's a really incredibly warm feeling knowing that you, in a very small part, had a way in reshaping someone's career.
It's especially exciting when they were not confident about their own ability to get a job. Like for me, I can speak to that a little bit more. I'm luckier in that I see the progression every single day, week by week. So our first cohort, as I mentioned, of the full-time bootcamp is graduating tomorrow. And I remember talking to those 7 students 4 months ago, onboarding them, talking to them every single day, going through like moments of happiness, going through moments of frustration. Like this isn't easy. Like people are gonna get frustrated. They're gonna have some period of self-doubt, some period of thinking they can't cut it out as developers. But your mentors, myself, the instructors, the TAs will push you through that and we'll believe in you. And on your end, you just have to put in the effort. And it's really exciting for all of us at Thinkful when the students do get a job. Like every time that happens, we post a message in our Slack group, which you'll join soon. And it's like almost like a celebration from everyone here.
Yeah, and tomorrow we're actually doing that in a more physical sense in that we are celebrating the graduation of the first cohort. So I know that one of our colleagues here at Thinkful HQ, Catherine, has purchased streamers and balloons and things for us to celebrate with when the graduation ceremony, if you will, happens. And we're doing that as part of the big projector that we have behind us. So yeah, you can rest assured that you're joining a program that is as invested as you are into it. We really care about the success of our graduates, and another way for us to really stand behind how confident we are in the program and how much we care is to offer a guarantee on your success. To tell you that if you don't find a job as a developer or engineer within 6 months of completing the program, that you'll receive 100% of what you paid in tuition back. It's also incredibly important for us to note that we really care most about you as a student putting in the time and the effort to learn the program, to build and craft a portfolio that helps you find a job, and that once you are looking for jobs, you're actively searching for jobs. We're not here to tell you to abide by a super long list of criteria or rules that make it incredibly difficult or challenging for that guarantee to even apply. We're never going to ask you to, as Bomik mentioned earlier, submit applications to 5 jobs per day or per week. And that if you don't do that, we're going to shut you out of the career services or career support that you have as part of the program. And we're also never going to make you decide between opportunities that you have. We'll never make you apply to any jobs that you don't want to. But again, it is very important that you as a student are committed to finding a job and that you're open to discussing the opportunities in your area.
Right. We don't have commission with specific employers, so there's no kind of energy spent on our end of encouraging you to join this company or that company. As I said earlier, it's whatever will help you in your personal growth and also balance that with your own needs, your financial needs of supporting your own family too.
And there are a couple of important components of the guarantee, and that's generally known as a fine print. In Thinkful's case, the not so fine print, that you're at least 21 years old and that you're legally able to work in the United States, which are kind of given, and that you're also able to speak and write English to a proficient level. It's also really important that you're living in an area that has a healthy market for jobs in web development, or that you're able to relocate to an area as such, or are able to commute to an area like that. I wanted to note that Thinkful will never publish a list of cities and tell you these 23 cities or these 26 cities or however many cities are the only ones that will satisfy the guarantee. We have a list of cities, or we have a pseudo list of cities that we've worked with in the past that we know have a really healthy job market, places like Los Angeles and New York and San Francisco, of course, and even cities that you wouldn't consider to have such a strong market, like Detroit, Michigan, for example, or St. Paul and Minneapolis, places like Salt Lake City or Las Vegas. All of these cities are great for development, but we also want to make sure that if you're in a place like Cleveland, Ohio, or Little Rock, Arkansas, or Reno, Nevada, and you're not able to relocate, that we talk about whether the program is something that truly benefits you as a student. As Bhumik mentioned earlier, we're willing to work with students to customize the curriculum and make sure that we can include working with technologies that may not be part of a Thinkful program that will improve your chances of finding a job. But if you're not able to relocate out of a place like Birmingham, Alabama, or some parts in the Des Moines, Iowa area, for example, we can't offer the guarantee, but we can talk to you about maybe an alternative to Thinkful if it really isn't a good fit for you. We actually partner with a number of different boot camps that would be a good fit if you're in a place like Western North Carolina, for example. And if that ends up being the right decision or the right option for you, we're not going to suggest that you enroll in our program just to make a profit. We're going to talk to you and talk to you about other programs that may be a good fit for you. So if you are curious about whether the city that you're living in or the city that you're looking for jobs in satisfies the guarantee or is a healthy job market, please type it into the chat box, and I'm happy to walk through that together, and we can decide whether the Thinkful program overall would be a good option for you.
Right, and I just wanted to say the rationale behind not having a list of cities speaks to what happens in practice. So in theory, that could make sense. So just have a list, and people just look at it. If they live there, great. If not, move on. But in practice, the job market changes. There will be differences from year to year, or even like month to month. There's like hiring patterns in separate cities of like end of the year is when like a bunch of companies at San Francisco, for example, tend to hire more because they're filling in quotas for growth targets, So it really depends on the job market, the city, the student itself. So we'll talk to you. And again, this all comes back to what we've mentioned a few times before, and like a personalized approach to your own job hunt.
Yeah, and so really, if you are curious about any of the components of the guarantee that you have any questions about, type those questions into the chat box, and we can run through them at the end of the presentation. Now, I did want to make sure that we spend some time discussing the differences between the flexible and the full-time program. But first, I wanted to note that both of the programs that you may have seen online, or that you may have seen via the email that I might have sent you in the last couple of weeks, offer you the same high level of personal mentorship. And they also cover the same curriculum, and they offer you the same knowledge in terms of concepts that you'll learn. Both programs also offer you the same career opportunities, and they both carry the same job placement guarantee. So they do share the key components of what a true bootcamp is, and they have that in common. They're there to prepare you for a full-time job as a developer or engineer. However, there are a couple of structural differences between the two programs. And really that comes down, or which program might be the better option for you, comes down to who you are as an individual student. So I think we'll spend some time talking about the full-time program now before I jump into the flexible program later.
Great. So the full-time program at a high level, think of this similar to some of the in-person boot camps you might be familiar with, like an App Academy, Hack Reactor, General Assembly, because they have a specific structured schedule, and it's finite length, so it's 4 months long, and you're working with a cohort of students together. So you'll see the same 8 to 14 students every single day for 4 months, Monday through Friday. You'll work with them in a room like the screenshot you see here. So here is Joe Turner an instructor for the full-time bootcamp leading a workshop on jQuery elements. And you can see some of the students in this cohort, and this is the cohort that's graduating tomorrow, by the way. So you can see some of the students asking in the, like, writing in code in the chat. But the overall kind of the goal of this program is to have a very structured, immersive, intensive experience. The type of student who would succeed in this program is someone who can commit full-time, hence the name. So you would have to quit your job for this because it is structured hour by hour. And you can see the specific breakdown on the website for it. But a few other things to kind of highlight here that are worth mentioning is there is live instruction. So unlike some other programs you might be familiar with, these are not recorded lectures. These are live seminars on these topics. From the 10 to 6 period, there will always be an expert available to help you and answer your questions. So in the pair programming, for example, you're working with one of the students in your cohort each day, pair programming for around 5 hours a day. And during this entire time, there is a TA or instructor available for on-demand questions. So all you'll do is just ping them on Slack, which is a communication tool we use, and they'll jump right into your pairing session and help you, guide you to the answer. They won't give you the answer, but they will make sure that you're able to kind of see it for yourself. And then the other kind of thing to emphasize here is because we have this group experience, because we have these 8 to 12 students in the room at the same time, we can also add a lot of group projects and group collaboration. So students in this program are able to work on a project involving 3 to 4 people, and they'll learn how to collaborate using GitHub branches. They'll learn how to use Trello and wireframe projects and think about the overall project management flow. And they'll also have a lot of practice in presenting their projects as well. So tomorrow, for example, in graduation day, it's going to start with the students demonstrating the capstone project they worked on. So there's demo days and things like that involved. So think of this similar to one of the in-person boot camps. But the biggest difference there is there's a lot more attention and one-on-one support. And now Noel will talk about the flexible bootcamp, unless you have something worth adding.
No, I think it's very important to note that this is for someone who is looking for that very immersive structure, that very immersive bootcamp program that's very comparable to something that you'd experience in person, but with the added benefit of working one-on-one with a personal mentor every single day of the week. You're not going to be in a room with 25 other students and maybe 1 instructor and 2 not so qualified TAs. Every mentor that you're going to be working with as part of the full-time program has the rigor that it takes to become a Thinkful mentor overall and has many, many years of experience in the industry. The TA or the mentor that's working with you in the sessions will even be the lead instructor sometimes. So you can expect that you're going to be working with a very high skilled professional throughout the entire program.
Yeah, all of the expert help is actual people with years of professional experience, no alumni or former students.
Yeah, and so overall, for a very structured, immersive program, there's a right type of student. That's someone who's looking for that type of program itself. On the flexible side of the bootcamp program, we have a program that's actually been around for Thinkful for a long time. And it's actually one of the reasons that a lot of the success of our graduates is partly due. So we have a very self-paced and flexible approach to the traditional bootcamp experience. Meaning that, as I mentioned earlier, you can expect the same career opportunities and you can expect to apply for the same types of job that someone from an in-person bootcamp or someone from another more immersive online program can apply to. But you're doing it at your own pace. It's perfect for that student who can't necessarily quit their full-time job or can't walk away from the university that they're currently studying at or has family and friends that they need to take care of. But it's for that student who is able to work at a pace of at least 20 hours per week, meeting 3 times a week with their personal mentors over video chat with screen sharing, much like you see on screen now, to do a number of different things that I talked about a bit earlier in the presentation. Work through their curriculum together, make sure that you're understanding the concepts that you're covering, and also pair program so that you're building individual assignments that you're adding to your portfolio and those 4 capstone projects that I mentioned that are entirely student created. However, I wanted to note that even though it's at a more self-paced and flexible approach, you're not alone. You have an incredible amount of support available to you to make sure that you can get the help that you need in order to succeed in the program. Outside of the 3 one-on-one sessions that you have with your personal mentor, you're also going to have access to dozens and dozens of hours of live office hours that you can attend every single week, every day of the week, with different mentors from within our network. These office hours are in a very similar format to the one-on-one session with your personal mentor, that they're over video chat with screen sharing, but they're more similar to traditional office hours in college that other students can join in on, and you can listen in on the questions that other students have to ask and walk away with an extra amount of experience that you would have had access to otherwise. You're graduating from the flexible program in about 6 months. And as I mentioned, you're joining a community of hundreds of other students and mentors who can power you through the program and make sure that you're getting the level of support that you need to succeed.
Yeah, and to make one point clear, even though it says self-paced, this does not mean it will be kind of relaxed and you can chill and decide. And like there will be basically the program manager and your mentor will set specific goals that you have to reach every single week. So one feature of the actual dashboard is something called goals. When you click on goals in your dashboard, you will see week by week goals that you need to meet to graduate in 6 months. So even though we don't have the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. structure, hour by hour, where you're doing the same thing other students are, like the full-time bootcamp and the flexible bootcamp, there are still goals you have to reach. But what's great about it is you can decide when you're going to put in the hours. So if you want, you can still put in 50 hours a week in it, but it's on your own schedule. So whether that's in the mornings, in the evenings, in the weekend, maybe more clustered in the earlier in the week, you get to decide that. But accountability will still be built in through the goals and through the program manager for that program coming to watching you and making sure that you're not falling behind. And just so you know, like we have a view, we have an admin view, so we can see each of the students' progress and see exactly where they are. So if we notice, so if Derek or Eric, some of the program managers notice that you're falling behind or you need a little extra help with the topic, they will jump in and give you the support you need, either themselves or loop in like another mentor or ask your mentor to work with you more often per week. So accountability is still built in the flexible bootcamp.
And overall, both of the programs are going to offer you the same career support as well. So while you're learning the technical skills, you can expect the same level of commitment from your career coach and from Liz, the employer network manager, in making sure that after you graduate from the program and you have completed the technical portfolio, you're going through the exact same process in reviewing your portfolio, your application materials, and your overall soft skills when you begin applying for jobs. So it's going to be a very different experience in terms of the technical learning, but the same experience in terms of the career services and the career support that you'll receive as a Thinkful student. Now, we're very happy to jump into the differences between the two programs on a much deeper level, but I wanted to make sure that we also cover the scholarships and financing options for the program. So if you do have questions about which of the programs might be a better fit for you, please feel free to type those into the chat box. We'll make sure that there's plenty of time to answer those questions. I did want to quickly go over the scholarships and financing options programs for the program or for the Web Development Bootcamp. We've partnered with 3 really incredible organizations, Girl Develop It, Operation Code, and Mother Coders, to provide all self-identifying women and U.S. military members the opportunity of applying for scholarships. We're not applying for scholarships, receiving these scholarships. There's no application needed, and they can be combined with any of the different payment plans and financing options that we have as part of the course. And I wanted to note that the opportunities that we have in terms of financing include applying for a loan through one of the lenders that we partnered with, Skills Fund, or going through a different payment plan that's entirely within Thinkful. There's no application needed for that. And they are different in structure and they affect the price of the program differently. So if you have questions about those and would like to discuss what those look like, please type the questions into the chat box or let me know via email. Overall, I did want to note that the price for the programs goes as follows. The flexible program is priced at $1,500 per month because it is on a self-paced schedule and some students are finishing in 4 or 5 months, other students are finishing in 6. Whereas the full-time program is a 4-month-long program itself and is at $14,000. So I'll definitely be posting the financing options page, which goes into pretty great detail about the different options that you have, into the chat box. So if you need some time to review about that and think about what your personal finances are like, please feel free to reach out to me via email or by scheduling a call with me. I know that we've been talking for what seems like forever, so I want to make sure that we're not boring you or that you are not falling asleep at the screen. If you do have questions, now would be the perfect time to type them into the chat box. We'll spend the next several minutes and answering any of the questions that you have. But if you do need to step away from the presentation and get back to your busy day, if you're back on the East Coast or the West Coast, or if you need to go to dinner and you're on the East Coast, please feel free to do so now. Other than that, I will keep the slides up in case you want to reference a specific slide or anything that you saw on the website, by the way.
You got to post those links first.
Yeah. So I'll first post a couple of links that I think would be helpful for everyone to take a look at.
And then we'll answer your questions.
The first one that I wanted to post was the jobs report. So you can access that through that link there. And this is the financing options page that we have.
And before we answer the questions, I just want a quick announcement on the full-time product. So the next cohort for the full-time bootcamp starts August 22nd. We have exactly 3 to 4 seats left for that cohort. If you are interested in enrolling, please let us know as soon as possible because the deadline to enroll in the 2-week prep course is Monday. If you have any questions about that, feel free to, you want to put an email? You can, you can email Bomik at Thinkful, and Noel might later just post the prep course link.
Yeah, correct. So that would be a, definitely getting in touch with Bomik would be the most important step in getting set up with the full-time program. The full-time prep course is coming Monday, or before then, ideally before then, so that you can ensure that you take one of those spots that are left. But there are a couple of questions that students have posted already, so we want to make sure that we get through those. Let me scroll all the way up, make sure that we didn't miss anything in the beginning. I came in late. Is it going to be repeated, or is there recording? There is actually a recording. So if you'd like to get a recording of the info session for review session or for just your own records, please feel free to reach out to me via email. My email is noel@thinkful.com, and I'll be sure to send you the direct link to the YouTube.
I think that's it.
Oh, someone actually already posted it on the chat box. Great.
Cool.
What is the background of the mentors? The background of our mentors varies greatly. As we touched on that lightly at the beginning, they come from really different backgrounds. Some of them have been CTOs or senior engineers at companies for many, many years. Others have founded their own companies, and we actually have a couple of mentors who are in academia. Dr. Lippman is one of those mentors who, as I mentioned, has been in charge of writing the computer science component of the program here at Thinkful. So yeah, there are very different engineers. They all have an average of about 10 years of experience, as we mentioned. And if you'd like to read individually about who the mentors are that work with Thinkful, check out the page that I'm posting onto the chat box now. You can read individually on the background of each mentor that works with the Thinkful program, and also filter through them by which course they mentor for. Let's see. What income for starting first job? Great question. And this is very important for us to discuss. So I'll actually go ahead and share our screen, and we can take a look at the jobs report that we publish, which includes information on the job placement rate and also the salary increase that you see. So the number that you see on your screen now at the very right is the salary increase amongst our graduates. And one of the reasons that Thinkful overall reports on the salary increase as opposed to the national or the average starting salary for graduates is that we are working with graduates from all around the country. So the starting salary that someone in San Francisco or New York City can expect is very different than the starting salary of our graduates in a place like Dallas or Denver, Colorado. No, not seeing the screen share. Interesting. Are you able to see it?
If not, you can click on the link that Noel has chatted earlier, but we do have the screen shared. Click on the thumbnail.
See you guys only. Click on the, so if I zoom into this, you're able to see two different screens. We have us, and then we have the actual screen share.
So if you click on the picture next to us.
Is everyone else able to see the screen that we have shared? Yes.
Great.
Great. So as I mentioned, this is the jobs report and the salary increase percentage amongst our graduates. As I was saying, we publish this because we work with graduates from really different parts of the country. And so if you're working in a place like New York City or San Francisco, your starting salary will be very different than someone who's in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Seattle or Los Angeles even. So we do track that data pretty closely. And if you'd like to get in touch with me via email and discuss what the starting salary for graduates is in any particular city, please do so. We're happy to share that data. But it is very important that we cover the fact that we publish the salary increase as opposed to the average of our graduates, because it would be very dishonest to say you can expect $75,000 starting out if you're living in a place like Dallas. just as it would be dishonest for us to say you can expect $55,000 starting out if you're living in a place like Los Angeles or New York City. So overall, that's the reason that we published the salary increase as opposed to starting salary. See, we have a couple of other questions that have come in since.
Should we get the recent ones first?
Let's see here. I am in my second year of computer science at a community college, and it's incredibly slow to learn very much, but I have a student loan to help finance my tuition. It's great. There are a couple of students that are in the program currently that are also in computer science programs. There's actually someone who in the program currently who has a master's of computer science, which is very rare to Thinkful, very rare. But they're using the bootcamp program to build the technical skills and portfolio that they need to apply to a more medium level or senior level position. Average first year salary, as we discussed, if you have questions about a specific city, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss the numbers that we have for that. Wow, that's a great guarantee. Thanks, we think so as well. Can I work remotely? Through the program? Yeah, everything is entirely remote. Can you work remotely once you've graduated from the course? Remote work isn't something that's covered as part of the guarantee, but that's not to say that it's impossible either. Some of the graduates that have gone through the program are currently working remote positions. I can think of at least 2 that are. But it is very important that you understand that you're competing not only with other entry-level developers, but that you may be competing with someone who's more senior level and really wants to work remote.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's harder to find remote work, especially given the reason Noel just said, and that after a few years in the industry, a lot of engineers want to have a traveling lifestyle. So you're directly competing with people that are more senior engineers too. But so that doesn't mean you won't be able to do it ever. Remember, this job is only your first job. So you're welcome to start your job and then prove that you have the discipline and the organization. And then you can maybe work remotely at that current company, like Kara at Thinkful too.
Yeah, one of our most recent, or not one of our most recent graduates, one of our Thinkful HQ members is someone who's currently working remote for Thinkful. She is in Hawaii normally. She's at the Thinkful HQ office for a couple of weeks right now. But yeah, if you are interested in finding remote work because you're not able to relocate to another area, we won't be able to have the guarantee apply, but we'll definitely be able to help you find remote work. We'll work just as hard as we would with any other graduate who's in another city of the country in finding you a position that will allow you to work remote. Let's see.
Can I take some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, how many hours per day? Someone asked how many hours per day. It depends on the program you decide. So with the flexible bootcamp, it's up to you to decide how many hours you want to put each individual day, but you must commit at least 20 hours per week. There's other students who put in more time because they have that time or they want to commit more. But it depends on you, and that's kind of the benefit of that program is you can decide when you're going to put in the hours. For the full-time program, you have to be committed to the 10 a.m. to the 6 p.m. Eastern schedule. On top of that, you have to put in 1 to 2 hours in the evening and then around 5 hours on the weekend every day over the 4 months. Course material. If you're referring to the curriculum, we talked about that in the slide earlier. It's full stack JavaScript, but the way the content is presented is in our own app. So we built an app in-house where all of the curriculum is organized in a very structured way, units, lessons, assignments, and you can submit projects in the curriculum app. And there's it's mostly text-based, but there's many images and links to external resources if you need them. But it is all original content that we have built in-house.
Another question that we have is how does pair programming work if I'm in a different time zone, for example, the Flex program? If you're in the flexible program, you can work from any part of the world that you're currently in. We have students that are working in the program from the UK. We have students that are working in the program from India, several students that have worked in the program from Canada, and we actually had a student once in Australia. So you can definitely work from around the world. We have mentors that are working in different time zones as well, or that are working different hours. So it's definitely, we can be confident in saying that we will be able to pair you with a professional who's a great match and who can work with you even if you're interested in working weekday evenings or on the weekends. The office hours that we have for the program are also held on the weekends. So if you have a more tough schedule Monday through Friday and you're able to devote most of the time to the flexible program on Saturdays and Sundays, you can expect that you'll have the same level of support even though it's the weekend.
Right, and if you're in the full-time program, it's specifically 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern.
Is it pretty much front-end design this bootcamp teaches, and what technology stack? So I think you may have been the student who came in a little bit late into the info session, but no, the program is a full stack development course. We teach full stack JavaScript. So that means working with things like HTML and CSS, of course, for front-end development, jumping into JavaScript, jQuery, and React for really advanced front-end development, and then on the back end, focusing on Node.js, Express, and MongoDB. Overall, it is a full stack program, and you're going to graduate with a full stack set of skills, and also, most importantly, a full stack portfolio.
Yeah, to add to that, some data science and algorithm concepts, which are very important in interviewing. It seems most bootcamps place a heavy emphasis on learning Rails. Why did you choose not to go this route? Well, actually, if you look at some of more recent bootcamps, they've actually started to switch away from Rails. An example of that is Maker Square. They used to be Rails, switched over to JavaScript App Academy, which is a bootcamp that markets itself as Rails. If you actually look at their curriculum, they also teach JavaScript and React as well. So the bootcamp world is actually going into the JavaScript direction. And Noel actually touched on the reasons why earlier, but basically JavaScript is the language of the browser. You cannot get away with being a web developer not knowing JavaScript. It's the most evolving language, and the community around JavaScript is only growing with the number of frameworks growing. And finally, the barrier to entry for JavaScript jobs is a lot lower as well, because there's such a more demand because people are looking for React engineers, Node engineers, Angular engineers. So the bootcamp world is actually moving away from teaching Rails and switching over to JavaScript.
Another very important reason that we focus on JavaScript as opposed to Ruby on Rails, or even things like PHP or .NET or Python for backend development, is that, and I touched on this slightly in the presentation, from a learning perspective, it makes a lot of sense that you, as a student that's going through a bootcamp program, so something as immersive as a program that is preparing you with all the skills that you need in just 4 to 6 months, that you focus your attention on becoming an absolute master at working with one language and its different frameworks. Front-end development, at least advanced front-end development, the type of development that you'd be expected to be able to perform at a job, can only be done using JavaScript and its different frameworks, learning React or Angular or Ember.js, for example. So if you're already doing front-end development and you're already learning front-end development using JavaScript, it also makes sense that you focus on learning JavaScript for the back-end component, because it is something that you can use for back-end development and full-stack development overall. So those are a couple of the reasons that the bootcamp program that we have at Thinkful, and not just Thinkful, some of the most elite bootcamps that are out there, in-person bootcamps like Hack Reactor and Maker Square, as Bamik mentioned, also focus on JavaScript.
Yeah, and one thing to emphasize is our goal for our students and for our graduates is not just to help you learn a specific framework or language. It's to help you become self-sufficient programmers so that you can learn any new skill on your own after you graduate. Because when you get hired as as an engineer, the stack at your company isn't going to be exactly what you learned at the bootcamp. You might have to learn Ember, or you might have to learn another framework, maybe even a new language altogether. And we want you to get into a position where by the time you graduate, you know how to learn a new language yourself, and that process is much faster the second time around.
Yeah. Another question that we have is, how about Saturdays and Sundays for mentoring? As I mentioned, mentors are totally available on the weekends if you're in the Flex program as well. And even if you're in the full-time program and you need a little bit of extra help on the weekends, you can attend office hours that are scheduled throughout the entire day, both on Saturday and Sunday, to get extra help.
Yeah, in the flexible bootcamp, you can have your mentor sessions anytime. And in the full-time program, you will be expected to put in hours. And as Noel mentioned, there's Q&A sessions every single day.
Other than the one-on-one career help you previously mentioned, what sets you apart from the other remote boot camps like Block, Hack Reactor, Viking Coding School, etc.? Great question. And I wanted to note that other than the one-on-one career prep component of the program, which is extremely unique to Thinkful, we also offer the highest level of personal mentorship that you'll receive as part of any program. Whether you're looking at the flexible program, which is 3 times per week for 1-hour-long sessions, not twice a week for 45 minutes, or not once a week, even if you're moving at a pace of like 20 to 25 hours per week, it's 3 times a week. Each session is 1 hour long. And something that's very, very unique to Thinkful are those office hours that we've mentioned a couple of times now. So I actually want to share our screen and take you to the office hours that we have here at Thinkful. so that you have a better idea of the level of support that you can expect from a Thinkful program. This calendar that you see on your screen now is where you can access every single office hour and Q&A session that you have with mentors throughout the entire week. You can filter them through topics. So if you're going through the front-end development component of the curriculum, for example, working on a jQuery project or JavaScript project, you can see that there are several office hours that you can attend. There are so many, in fact, that they will be
at the same time.
At the same time, and also you'll see that you'll be the only one there, or maybe one other student will be there in the room with you.
I call them free mentor sessions, basically.
Yeah, really, you can access as many of these as you'd like. So you could be in touch, hypothetically, with a mentor multiple times per day, every single day of the week. Monday through Wednesday, there are probably about 6 per day. Yeah, on the weekends.
Look on Sunday, there's 4 this Sunday. For any topic under the bootcamp, all 4 of these hours can help answer any questions on Sunday.
Yeah, so you really could be in touch with a mentor throughout the entire week, every single day of the week. And that's something that is very unique to Thinkful. No other online platform offers this level of support. So both the technical side of the bootcamp itself, learning the skills and crafting the portfolio is entirely unique, and the career prep and job placement component, both in the fact that they are offering you such a high level of one-on-one action, one-on-one interaction.
And we've actually had in the full-time program, many students who went through Hack Reactor's prep program enroll in our bootcamp, and they are very happy with their experience. So if you're kind of deciding between the two, I'm happy to introduce you to some of them to hear how their experience is going so far.
Yeah, and another important component that I mentioned and touched on in the presentation is that the curriculum is all entirely built by Thinkful, and that because you have such a high level of personal mentorship, the projects that you can build are entirely unique. Another thing that sets Thinkful aside from other online platforms is that we're not having you recreate sites like Airbnb or Reddit or things like Tumblr or Instagram. Instead, we're having you create an entire portfolio of capstone projects that is entirely created by you. You'll not see that on something that's on another online platform, or even some of the in-person boot camps that you consider. Let's see.
Close the screen share.
Oh. To get hired, I assume I must travel for an interview with the employer. Depends. It's not always the case, but it is very highly recommended that if you are considering relocating to a different area, that you do spend some time in that area interviewing in person and even growing the network of employers that you can work with in person. So it's not always the case that you need to travel and that you need to interview in person, but it sometimes will be. Your career coach can definitely touch on that and give you the best piece of advice that they can if you're someone who is living in a completely different part of the country and applying for jobs in another. There are several students in the program now that will have to do that, so we're going to be prepared to face any challenges that you may.
Yeah, it really depends on the company. I can tackle this next question. I know App Academy pre-screens students before enrolling them to the program to increase the chance of getting students hired. Does Thinkful have similar selection process for enrollment? So let me talk about it with the 2 programs. So with the Flexible Bootcamp, any student can enroll, as long as you fit that the fine print, over 21, living in the US, have proficient English. Anyone can enroll, and that's a core value at Thinkful, is having universal access. And we do not like programs that pre-screen for people who already have CS degrees or already have a lot of professional program experience. In fact, we've heard students at these boot camps kind of get overwhelmed by that peer group of having that much kind of intensity because everyone already had programming background and they're kind of learning things for the first time. For the full-time bootcamp, though, it is important that we have students who are committed to the program so they don't drop out after week 1, because that could just be demoralizing for everyone else. So we have a 2-week prep course for the full-time program. And in that prep course, we look for 3 things. We look for pace, projects, and personality. So in the prep course, you'll basically have access to our front-end curriculum, and you'll meet with a Thinkful mentor 3 times a week over video chat over those 2 weeks. You'll also have access to all of those office hours in our Slack channel, and you'll have 2 weeks to finish our first unit. And I would be the one who onboards you to that prep course, and I'm also the one who decides whether the students are accepted. And 2 weeks later, together, we will make a group decision based off how much content you were able to complete in that time, how your mentor sessions have been going, and overall, is this the program that's best for you? So this prep course is as much as it is for you as it is for us. And I think Noel is about to send the link for that. Yeah, so Noel just chatted the link to enroll in the prep course. We specifically don't include this on the website because we want to make sure you're ready to go in this prep course if this is the program that makes sense for you. So yeah, you're welcome to go ahead and enroll in that prep course, and it is 2 weeks long, and the deadline to enroll in it is Monday for the August 22nd cohort. But if you have questions about the prep course in advance, you're welcome to email me instead, and so I can dive a little bit deeper into it. And I think Noel's going to...
Yeah, there's one thing that I forgot to know before I posted that specific link to enroll in the prep course. Because the deadline to enroll in the prep course is coming up this Monday, August 8th, and it's extremely important that students enroll in the prep course with enough time to prepare properly for the August 22nd start date. What we've done is we've decided to waive the fee for the prep course, and now it's a free 2-week prep course that you can enroll in. You're going to be working one-on-one with a personal mentor in a similar fashion to as you would in the part-time program or the flexible program. So even if you're on the fence and not sure whether the full-time program or the flexible program is the right option for you, go ahead and enroll in the prep course that we have that I just posted the link to.
I did not know that.
And find out. You'll be able to access that and talk to a personal mentor, enroll in the program, and figure out whether the full-time program would be the right option for you.
Am I usually on a notebook or tablet, so will camera and lighting for any location be okay for taking the course? So while most of the time, so it depends on the program, first of all, during the one-on-one mentor sessions, which is the same for all, you will be using video chat. So you'll be in a room just like this. So it's important to be on a laptop or a PC, desktop, and have a webcam. And the MacBook Pro or Windows both work. For the full-time program, though, you are wired from 10 to 6. So you'll be at your laptop from 10 to 6 Eastern every day, because you'll be in workshops, you'll be pair programming with the students in using Screen Hero, things like that. So in the full-time program, you have to be at your laptop 10 to 6 every single day during Monday, Friday. But in the flexible bootcamp, outside of your one-on-one sessions, it's up to you on where you want to study and where you want to code and where you want to program, which is kind of great. So you can be on vacation and still programming. So that's kind of one of the benefits of the flexible bootcamp.
Yeah. That being said, if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask us about either program, or if you're ready to start preparing for the full-time program and you want to get in touch with my colleague Monique one-on-one, he's posting the email address that you can reach him at currently. Otherwise, you can always schedule a call with me through thinkful.com if you have any questions. But if no one has any questions at this time, we wanted to make sure that we thank you all once more for joining us for the Web Development Bootcamp info session. I look forward to speaking with you one-on-one in the coming weeks as you decide on the program. And we hope that you have a great rest of your evening if you are on the East Coast like we are, or if you're on the West Coast, that you hang in there until the rest of your workday.
Have a good one, everyone.
That is slick. Thanks.
Yeah, we really thought about the prep course a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good one.